Okay,
Yes, our wonderful representative, and I say that with my tongue in my cheek.
I actually spoke with her last Friday about this legislation.
What did she say?
Basically, that it isn't what we think. It's a protection for teachers to define things so that they don't find themselves running afoul of these laws.
So that they don't find themselves running afoul of the things this says they can't do.
How do you spell gaslight?
She didn't really want to talk to me long about it. She got off the phone with me pretty quick.
I'll bet. Once again, everybody, from the studio, the elaborate studio in the bonus room above the garage in my house on the very north side of Fort Mill, the shadow of Charlotte, in the foot of Mount Belzoni, this is the YCDP, York County Democratic Party podcast and YouTube TV show. Today, Matt Villardebeau put out a bulletin on the YCDP Facebook group about a committee meeting that was going to happen down in Columbia about education. They're going to talk about the Transparency and Integrity in Education Act. He wanted people to get down there in time to speak before this group. That happened. I don't think anybody actually got down there. I don't think that his bulletin was successful in terms of getting people to show up in Columbia, but it gave me an idea for a podcast. And I gathered a group of people together because we were going to have a meeting tonight of our group here in the neighborhood I live in, Carolina Orchards, at the very north end of Fort Mill, from which we can throw a rock and hit Pineville across the state line. And a few folks were going to gather for that meeting, and I turned it into a podcast, and we talked about this bill. Look who I've got here, everybody. Hello to the York County Democratic Party podcast audience and YouTube audience. We're going to talk about this Transparency in Education bill. It's all Matt Villardebeau's fault. He brought it up on the YCDP Facebook group, and maybe I'll have him discuss just a little bit about what this is all about. But I wanted to get a group of folks to talk about it, and we're going to go through the bill in just a minute. Not point by point, but I pulled out half a dozen or so points out of it that I think were the salient points in the bill. And the folks you see around me are members of the Carolina Orchards Americans for Democracy and Equality group, our progressive group here in Carolina Orchards at the very north end of Fort Mill. So, Matt, the last podcast we did, we were the Fort Mill Mafia, you and me. And here's the rest of the
That is correct.
Here's the rest of the Fort Mill Mafia. You guys want to introduce yourselves? Jan, go ahead and tell people who you are.
My name is Jan Rose. I moved here almost 7 years ago from California, and boy, was it culture shock. So I'm real happy to find other people of like minds with me.
And Shirley?
I'm from New York. My name is Shirley Lustig. And yes, it was culture shock. I'm still in culture shock. But we're trying.
Yeah, none of us are from around here. And Jan?
No, you want Linda.
I'm sorry, Linda. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Linda Principe, and my husband Lou is here in the background. We're originally from New York, but we were in New Jersey for 33 years. We've been in Fort Mill now 3.5 years, and we're very happy being in Carolina Orchards, and of course, happy that we have found our people. You know, we've really been able to align ourselves with several of the few Democrats that are in the community. So that's a little comcomforting.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do what we can. I know it's a little difficult, and we're in a red state, and we've never been in a red state. We've always been in 2 blue states. So here we are.
Well, what we keep saying is that there's more of us than we think we are. I mean, we're 35 to 45% of the population, depending on where you look at voting and records and statistics. But there's more of us than you think. We're outnumbered, but we're not outgunned.
Well, I'll tell you where you'll find more. They're going August. I think it's August 8th. I'm going to a concert in Charlotte with Bill Maher. The place will be mobbed. It'll be over 2,000 people, all Democrats.
But up in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
I mean, we are so close, especially those of us here in Carolina Orchards. We are a stone's throw from the state line, the very farther north end of Fort Mill. So close, but yet that magic line
so far
divides us.
Yeah.
Right,
From-
right.
Yep. Okay, so this is what happened. This bill came up. Matt, how long has this bill been going on? It started not too long ago.
Yeah, no, this was one of the first things that Representative Felder filed. I don't even think she pre-filed it. I think she filed it just on the regular filing day. It was kind of a surprise to me too, because this isn't really in her wheelhouse to get this deep in the weeds and stuff like this. So
Yeah. So we don't know.
remove us.
We don't know why she did this, but she is the principal sponsor. It says here it was filed on January 18th, just a couple of days ago.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, this is the candidate who the SCEA, South Carolina Education Association, chose to endorse over me in the last election. This is the public school champion for South Carolina. So something to keep in mind is the sort of battles that candidates have to fight around here.
Okay, this is what the bill looks like as it's printed out. We're going to look at something a little cleaner, but this is what it looks like as it's printed out. And looking for the name of it, I don't see it easily right here, so I'm gonna dig out my my better version of it, which looks like this. It is the Transparency and Integrity in Education Act. Transparency and Integrity in Education Act. We could probably start right there. What does that mean? Yeah,
They're going to restrict everything that they can, it sounds like.
Yeah, everybody's shrugging and don't know what to say. Okay, what I've done is I've highlighted what appeared to me to be the important points of the bill. Here's a pretty clear statement: to prohibit certain concepts from being included in public school instruction, and to provide for addressing violations. So we have the law, got the enforcement, and to provide procedures for public review of the curriculum and instruction materials. Okay, so I guess that's sort of the basics of it. It still doesn't say very much about it. It just says we're gonna prohibit some things. We'll get down to what they are in a minute. It'll get fairly specific, sort of, about what's going to be prohibited and how to address violations and what's going to happen if you screw up. Okay, it is the intent of the General Assembly that, and there's a bunch of language here on the screen that just says blah, blah, blah. Everybody's wonderful. Our schools are great. Here's at the top of the screen now. Here's the point. Let me go back and pick up what they're saying. It is the intent of the General Assembly that parents and students can raise awareness and have their concerns about objectionable material heard and addressed whenever a topic is presented in a way that is biased toward one ideology. How's that landing on you guys?
Well, it sounds
to me
like
like they're not saying anything.
Well, it sounds to me what DeSantis, what they said DeSantis was going to do. He doesn't want anything bad to be told about the white race. He wants to knock out history. He doesn't want, he wants to rewrite history. And I think the southern states are trying to follow him. Because, history is history and everything should be told. Otherwise, you can't move on with the world and you can't make this a better place to live in.
All right.
But,
well, when it says objectionable material, That's very subjective.
Right.
You think?
Yeah, it's a euphemism
Yeah.
for anything that smacks of real science or real history.
Yeah. So how often do you guys dig into bills this deep?
Not often
Oh,
enough.
Never.
Yeah. Let's dig into this one a little bit deeper. This is what the bill says you can't do. The following prohibited concepts may not be included or promoted in a course of instruction. And there's a lot of extra words here that I'm just skipping because, it's a lot.
It's fluff.
It's not, well, it's not really fluff. It's, I'll run through it the first time. You can't be promoted or included in a course of instruction, curriculum, assignment, instruction program, instructional material, primary or supplementary materials, whether in print, digital, or online. So, blah, 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 just to get the details in. We don't need all those details. Here's what you can't do. Number one race, sex, ethnicity, color, or national origin, and I'm going to contract those in a bit and not read every one of them because those words come up over and over again. One race, sex, ethnicity, color, or national origin is inherently superior to another race, sex, ethnicity, color, or national origin. Okay, so you can't say that. Anybody have a problem with that?
No, I don't.
No?
No, that's great. No problem at all.
Right.
Because that's true. Okay, next. An individual, by virtue of sex, et cetera, inherently is privileged, racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or subconsciously. That has to sink in on me a little bit. Here's something you can't say as if you're a teacher in school. That an individual, by virtue of their race, sex, et cetera, is inherently privileged, racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or subconsciously. You guys asked how long this is going to take. I guess it might take a while, line by line. What does that line say?
This speaks to me of you're limited in your speech, whether or not what you're saying is true.
Yeah, I mean, how would you say? I'm trying to imagine the situation in a classroom where a teacher is saying that one group of people, segregated by race, sex, ethnicity, etc., is inherently privileged, or racist, or sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or subconsciously. Do we think that is true?
No. So that means you really can't tell them about World War II.
Yeah, I mean, do we think that as a statement that there are individuals who are privileged based on race, sex?
Yeah.
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 And
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. And
They
now,
can't talk about white privilege.
right. So we think that is true, and Raye Felder doesn't want us to be able to teach students that could be true. Okay. So we came to agreement on point one that nobody is superior, and then we got to point two and we ran into trouble. What a surprise! It happened that fast. Point number three: an individual. This is something you can't say as a teacher. You can't do this. You can't teach that an individual should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment because of race, sex, ethnicity, etc. So, okay, I'm
fine.
the teacher.
Yeah.
I'm standing in front of the classroom. I can't teach my students that someone should be discriminated against. Okay, so we're
that's
two for
fine.
one.
Right. Okay.
So far.
Number four, the moral character of an individual is determined by their race, sex, ethnicity, religion, color, or national origin.
Can you scroll up a little bit?
Yeah, we can't see it.
Yeah, that's the bottom of the page. I can't make it any higher.
Say that again, please?
A teacher can't stand in front of the classroom and say that the moral character of an individual is determined by their race, sex, ethnicity, religion, color, or national origin.
Okay, so the teacher can't say that.
Yeah, the teacher can't stand there and say that. My morality, your morality is determined by your race, etc.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
agree that they can't
Yeah.
say that.
Okay. So we're 3 for 1. We got one thing we disagree with, and 3 things we agree with.
All right, we're ahead of the game.
Yeah. Let's see how let's see how our batting average is going to hold. Okay, we're up at the top of the page there. Number 5, an individual by virtue of the race or sex of the individual. Ooh, I underlined this in red. There must be a reason for this.
Mhm.
This is something you can't stand in front of your class and tell people. That an individual by virtue of race or sex of the individual bears responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of the same race, sex, ethnicity, etc., etc.
You're cutting out history.
Explain-
No,
You have to-
but-
You can't teach history if you
Yeah.
can't say what happened. Even if I'm white, so I can't say Hitler was a bad person. I mean, that's ridiculous. You have to be able to stand up in front of, I was a teacher. You got to stand up in front of the class and you have to say, this is what was. Let's not make it the future, but this is what was. Let's learn from the past.
Mhm.
And if you can't do that, you might as well not have a classroom with a teacher. You might as well be teaching nothing.
Well, I don't think that's exactly what it's saying. Let's take another
I don't
look
think so
because
either.
there's a. Well, go ahead.
I think what it's saying is white people today, I mean, this is an example, white people today are not to be held responsible for what their ancestors did to the Black people who were enslaved. Or white people today cannot be held responsible for what this country did to the Japanese residents of the country. You know, that we can't be held responsible for.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know how this thing works. I don't know how this stupid thing works.
You know, that
Too much
that
technology.
We have no responsibility for what our ancestors did.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to still teach. You have to still be able to teach. It happened. No, I'm not responsible for what happened yesterday by somebody else, but I have to be able to teach it to show why it's not the right thing to do, or they did the right thing. You know, either way you want to put it. But you have to have the right to discuss it, and it doesn't matter whether you're white, black, green, or blue.
Yep.
You have to be able to say this happened.
Well, this
And they
doesn't tell
happen
you
to be white.
this doesn't tell you you can't discuss it. It just says that you don't bear responsibility for their actions. And I
Well,
think
that's true.
that there's
Yeah.
there's a lot of weight being put on these words bears responsibility for actions.
Right.
What does that mean? What is
There's a lot of movement afoot to pay reparations to
Mhm.
people
Mhm.
in some fashion.
Right, you're right.
And so that basically is putting the burden of responsibility on citizens today for what happened 200 years ago.
I think you got a point.
There's legal responsibility issues, or there's moral responsibility issues, and you know it's a real gray area. And I can't tell you whether I'm in favor of reparations or I'm not in favor of reparations.
In terms of this statement, they don't think it's a gray area. They think it's black and
yeah.
white. You do not bear responsibility.
Well, it isn't a fact of responsibility. What happened in the back in the day to different people of different races and everything, we have reaped the benefit of the horror that we put on those people. Those people lost their homes, like that town. I forget the name. The town they just had the anniversary for, that they wiped out the whole town. A very rich black community.
Oh yeah.
Oh, like in Kansas?
Well, I'm sorry, I don't remember where, but it was the whole thing on it where they wiped out very wealthy black business people and families, and the families over there took their land and took all the things that were valuable from these people, and going forward, their families reaped the benefits of it. So in that respect, yes, you have to help the people that would have been, if they didn't do that to that town going forward, their children would be would be more educated. They would have more money in the bank. They would be able to go forward. They would bring the wealth forward like people are trying to do for their own children now.
Yeah,
so
but it's not my fault. I didn't do it.
Reap the benefit. So we reap the benefit of what we did. And therefore, yes, we owe something to the people that we destroyed because we've held these people back, whatever the people are.
But I didn't do it. Not my fault. I didn't do it.
But because these people, these people had their money stolen, their land stolen, and everything else. Not everybody in every town, but the basic of the legal department of all of the United States, even that nobody went in there to put these other people in jail that did this. So they okayed it by not doing anything about it. So going forward, these people would have had much more and maybe contributed much more to the economy. We have to do something to help the people who are less fortunate or have had a lot of ills happen to them in order for our country to grow forward and grow stronger. You can't just say, well, that wasn't my fault, because no, it wasn't your fault per se.
I believe that's exactly what they're saying.
Well, I'm saying you can't be, you have to, everybody has the benefit of something that happened bad to somebody else. You got, going forward, we reap the benefits. I don't know. Maybe they were farmers and we got to eat more vegetables because they used that land to, really plant a lot of vegetables. I'm just saying, going forward, we're all one country, and we have to be responsible for our country. And if somebody does something wrong, we have to be responsible in the sense of morality. And legally, these people were hurt. And if nothing else, the government of the United States should do something and we're part of the United States. And yes, they're going to use our tax monies and all that, but it's a fair thing to do. If somebody burns your house down, the insurance company is going to pay. And then the insurance company is going to raise everybody's rates because now they lost money because they had to pay out on a house. So it's the same principle. You're part of something, and you have to you're responsible in the sense that you if it happened to you, you would want somebody to help you, and this goes for everybody.
Apparently it does not. Apparently it does not go for Raye Felder and the Republicans in the state legislature.
Well,
apparently
we're not. Because
they don't believe in social justice.
Why? They're so guilty. They're so guilty that they like this town. I'm just using this town. They're so guilty because they back in the day, they all approved that was a wonderful thing that they did. And now they don't want their kids and their grandkids to know what kind of jerks they were going forward. So they're making a law trying to stop free speech. Of course, free speech is in the Constitution, but they're looking to take it away. And that's exactly what that's saying. If you can't do this in a classroom and you can't do that in a classroom, you're taking free speech away. You're not allowed to teach history. You're not allowed to teach what happened. No, you personally aren't responsible, but as a community, you are responsible. And that's the important thing. You have to teach children community and that we all are responsible for each other. Otherwise, this world is going to be a worse world than it is.
Yeah. I should explain to the audience that Shirley, you are a progressive national treasure. You are awesome, but I believe we need to move on. So we looked at item 5 up there, and okay, so now we got a little problem with item 5. Let's look at item 7 that I highlighted here. Fault, blame, or bias. This is something you can't teach. Cannot teach that fault, blame, or bias should be assigned to race, sex, ethnicity, etc. They repeat that a lot. Can't assign fault, blame, or bias to a group because of their race. Do we understand what that means?
Well, you can't blame a whole group of people for the actions of a few.
Let's put it into closer context. There's no question that we believe, three white people here, that black people have been discriminated against systematically since before the country was formed.
Yes.
Can we assign fault, blame, or bias to anyone based on race, et cetera, et cetera?
The fact is that the country is white. It was whiter back then. I mean, there were other races in the country, but our country was white. And yes, not everybody in the North wanted to do what they were doing in the South, but until they got the war going, they allowed it. So you have to. There is responsibility that your ancestors did something. They did do it. I mean, it's a fact of life. They did it. So
they don't have any.
The moon didn't come down and do it.
Number 7 there. They don't have a frame of reference for time. They're saying we can't go back and look at the early 1800s and assign fault, blame, or bias based on race. As a teacher standing up in front of the classroom.
So who are you going to blame it on? Who did the history? Is the question. Who did the history? The guy came down from the moon. I think we're just going to do it and went back.
Apparently, we're just going to do this. Apparently,
it doesn't work. You have to teach truth in a classroom. When I was in high school, I was about 14 years old. And I was in a history class, and I remember it to this day. The teacher started teaching about World War II, and on that day, I learned about Crystal Night, not in a religious school, in a public school. And it was like an eye-opener to me, and that I was interested. What happened? Why did this happen? How did this happen? And and then going forth, I started to learn about that. But if you don't teach children what happened before, there's not going to be any reason for them to learn about what they have to do in the future. My mind is boggled. But I taught in my classroom what is it. It's not a. I'm not. You're not blaming anybody.
So you've been a teacher.
I was a teacher.
And if you were a teacher in South Carolina now,
I'd lose my job.
Sounds like that might be the case. Okay, so those are the things you can't do. There's some other things listed here, but I think I wanted to pick out the most important things that I found anyway. Everybody else can go look for themselves. Here's what you can do. Nothing in this section prohibits this, the history of an ethnic group. You can teach the history of an ethnic group. As described in the South Carolina State Standards and Instruction Manuals, adopted pursuant to the South Carolina Code of Regulations. I have no idea what's in there. I don't know what that tells you. But if you follow all those instructions, you can teach the history of an ethnic group.
I wonder what the restrictions are in those regulations.
I wonder too.
Yeah, we'd have to see those.
Yeah, I haven't taken the time to dig them out, so I don't know. We'll see.
I'd be very interested in finding out what it is. I mean, because how do you teach? I'll do a lesson plan. Tell me what I can teach.
Yeah, but I'll
get around the corner.
You can probably look it up. I don't know. We'll see. So that's number 1. You can teach the history of an ethnic group if you follow the instructions. You can teach a fact-based discussion of controversial aspects of history. So here we were saying, especially Shirley, that wait a minute, you're being gagged. You've got no freedom of speech. You can't say anything. And yet suddenly here, there's this number 2. You can have a fact-based discussion of controversial aspects of history. Somebody mentioned the word subjective a little bit earlier, I think. It's like, what the hell does that mean? Raye Felder, what does that mean? I don't understand.
It means that it means that you will follow the rules. This is the rules, A, B, C, and D. That's it. This is the way you can think. This
Well-
is the way you can act. And
But-
and that's the only way. It's taking away everything that's in the Constitution and making their own. They're redoing it.
Yeah, but this
Because,
very specifically says we permit a fact-based discussion of controversial aspects. I think I
Who
have.
decides what the facts are?
Well, I think I have I have an idea where this might be going. I think that this might end up being a tell it to the judge kind of thing. Because you think you were discussing a fact-based discussion of history. And then later on, we're going to discover what happens if somebody disagrees with you and thinks perhaps maybe you weren't. We'll find out. So we'll hold that one in our pocket for a minute, a fact-based discussion. Number 3, a fact-based discussion on the historical oppression of a particular group of people based on race, ethnicity, etc. That's more specific. It's okay to teach a fact-based instruction on the historical oppression of a particular group of people based on race, etc. Well, that's getting better.
Yeah.
Well, where are they getting this book?
Where are they getting their
Who
facts?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I still want to know where they're getting the facts.
Are they getting facts or are they getting alternative facts?
Yeah, what type of a history book are they looking at?
Yeah. And once again, I think we're going back to the idea that I think I taught something fact-based. What happens if somebody disagrees with me? Well, we're going to see.
You make a new religion, just like all the religions of the world.
Yep.
Somebody didn't believe in this, so they changed it and made it into that. So now we got 52,000 religions in the world because we didn't agree with one thing of that one or one thing of that. You have a right to disagree, but the basic of all the religions in the world are on one thing. There's a God. What you want to call him is another story, okay? But I'm going to call him John, Joe, Mary, whatever. But that's the basic of it.
Is it basic that there's only one?
No, I said there's many different names.
No,
to it.
one,
There's
only one God. Can there be a religion
there's
with multiple
one God
gods?
who made us. Who we want to call him is another word. Listen.
Can there be a religion with 5 gods?
Well, no.
Can there be a religion with no gods?
William is Bill. He's the same guy, William and Bill.
I believe we're
Just
going off
using a
track.
Yeah. No, but I'm
Okay.
saying
Yeah,
the
we're not
same
talking
thing.
about religion, Shirley.
No,
I'm trying to
let's
say
get-
that the basic of the facts that they want to teach. I'm saying whose thoughts, who's deciding what the facts are. So if they don't like the facts, they're making another book. Okay, another book is going to have other, they're going to twist the facts around. Is what I'm saying. They're going to go off into direction. They say, "Oh yes, we oppressed. We did something to the black people. We had them as slaves, but we treated them good. We didn't treat them bad." That's one book. The other book says, "No, you did treat them pretty bad." That's a different book. Which book did they print that tells the teacher she can stand up in front of the classroom and say what she can say?
Yeah. So that's
the fact.
That's the question. The fact-based instruction. Where do you get your facts?
Right.
Okay. So those are the things you can do. And the next section that I've got here is what I'm going to call the complaint department. The department, I guess that's the education department of the state, shall create a complaint form in which LEAs are schools. LEAs are schools. There's a definition somewhere, and I don't know where it is. Basically, an LEA is a school. It's an education association. They shall create a complaint form and put it on their website for when somebody says, "Hey, I don't like your facts. You're teaching wrong facts. And I want to do something about it." Going to get a complaint form on the school's website that you can go file your complaint. Okay, so that's important. If we're going to tell people what they can't do and what they can do, and somebody doesn't toe the line, then we need a redress. We need a way to correct things. So here we go. Got the complaint department. The complaint form will have a description of the prohibited concept, why the concept is prohibited, who has allegedly spoken the prohibited concept. Okay, so there's other stuff in here, but I think those are to me anyway, as I went through this quickly this afternoon, those were the important things. So anybody got a problem with complaint department?
Who's monitoring this complaint department? Who's the judge and jury of this complaint department? I mean, there's no rules written down. You have to know what the rules are. A teacher will get up in front of the classroom and teach whatever the school tells them to teach, whether it's truth or not. They need their job. They got to put food on the table. And this is not a democracy. This is not a democracy if you put that in there. It's not. You might as well, it's a dictatorship made by a few. And the parents that agreed to this, that vote these people in, they're part of this dictatorship. And you can just,
but
it's all up to the...
We haven't gotten to the point of who judges and decides things yet. And I think that's down there. I kind of forget. I think that's down there a little bit, but we'll take a look.
Okay.
Basically, I think what it is saying is if the teacher is teaching evolution and a parent objects and says they should be teaching creation, that's the kind of thing we're talking about.
Yeah, they can file a complaint.
Right.
And then we'll see what happens to that complaint. Okay, let's see what else is here. Parental review. Each school shall provide a statement on its website announcing the rights of parents to review curriculum and other materials under the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment as contained in 20 USC, that's the United States Code, I guess, referring to laws and stuff that are outside the scope of what I had time to go research right now. And they got to post the complaint form. So once again, you got the complaint form. So we're starting. Go ahead.
They're doing what DeSantis is doing in Florida. They're trying to rewrite the rules. They're making this country was, I thought it was separation of state and religion. Now you're getting everybody putting in what their religion says. They wanted only taught this, and they only want to be taught what, if they were brought up as prudes, they don't want any sex being brought into the thing. They don't want to know anything other than man and woman. If they were liberals, then they don't care. And they said everything goes, teach what is. They're trying to, the state is trying to see what kind of people live in that state. And their biases, the parents' biases of what their prejudice are, they want to. They not only give it to the kids in the house, they want them to go to school and make sure that their parents aren't liars. And they want everything taught the same way. You might as well be the Stepford wives, and just follow the rules, whatever it is. It's not a democracy. And that's my basic thing. It's not a democracy, what they're doing. They're putting in their own thoughts, their own, what they want people to think. They want to rule rule it. They want to rule what they think goes. It's like you had a father or a parent who was very rigid, and you were brought up a certain way, and that's the way you are, and that's the way you're going to think until the kid gets old enough and breaks away. But this is what you're going to be.
I can see how you're chafing at living in South Carolina, because it is a democracy, and these guys got voted in, not by us.
Well, then I'm saying it's the people in this state that are trying to make a dictatorship out of their state and letting only the rules that.
Surely you can't call the winners of an election a dictatorship. They won the election.
The problem
Dictatorship-
is that they want to make the rules for other people's kids.
Yeah,
If they want
And-
to make rules for their own kids, all well and good, they can homeschool them. But the problem is they make rules for other people's kids.
Okay, so
Right.
we have a new party joining the podcast here. Hello, Joyce.
Sorry, I just found your announcement.
Yep, we are actually in the middle of recording a podcast for the York County Democratic Party's YouTube channel, and you are now a part of it. Although,
Okay.
do you want to turn on your camera?
Okay, all right. You can't see much of me because where the camera is. But I'll try and stretch.
but that's basically what I want to say. They're trying to set it, but all this comes from their thinking. They got voted in.
They did.
They got voted in based on certain things. The
Based on
parents
being
might not have
Republicans.
known- Yeah, but the still, they didn't know what kind of crazy Republicans they put in there.
You
It's
don't
like
think?
this guy in Congress that they just put in. He lied his way through, and the people who voted him in are now realizing what they did. So the same thing with these parents. They voted somebody in who has these crazy thoughts, who did not come out and say these thoughts in order to win. I'm sure they didn't say, I'm going to change the school system and I'm going to tell them A, B, C, and D. But the parent says, no, I believe E, G, and F. So now they're finding out what the people are trying to do that they voted in. Now we're going to have to see how long they're going to stay in power, because the parents have to say that either the parents are educated and decent people and say, no, you got to teach them the truth. You can't just, do something like this. So yes, they're voted in.
So you
But
think?
they
So you think
weren't
maybe
voted in.
maybe
Yeah, but
based
the
on
parents, the parents may agree.
yeah.
They
I think,
with the
may,
person
but
they
there may
voted
be a
in.
lot of people that don't agree, because these people did not put their they didn't go up front and say, I'm gonna do this. They got in, and now they're in a place of power. So now they're going to try to switch everything around and change it, and figure that people follow like like sheep. Okay, they're trying to do that. Now they're going to be the sheep herder.
ladies
and
and gentlemen,
they figured-
this is the Shirley
All right.
podcast. This is the Shirley
I'm
podcast.
sorry.
The Shirley.
Okay, yeah.
No problem.
No, we're going to have to finish up
Yeah, no
in
problem.
the next
Okay,
couple of minutes.
couple more things to look at here in this thing, because we're getting down to the short strokes, I think. This is the section that I'm going to call CSI schools. You know what CSI is? The TV show,
Yes.
Crime
yeah.
Scene
Yeah, crime
Investigation.
scene investigators.
Yeah.
Before the 24-25 school year, so before next year, the department shall create, and each school shall adopt, a policy for procedures used to report and investigate. Investigate an alleged violation. In a moment, the results of that investigation. CSI schools.
Investigate what?
Investigate the alleged violation based
What?
on the complaint.
Violation of what?
Based on the
They don't follow the
complaint.
rules.
Yeah, based on the remember a minute ago we were talking about a complaint form that they had to put. So somebody fills out the complaint form, and now it goes to CSI schools. And then they need a timeline for the investigation, and they need to say when they are going to respond, and they need to say when there's going to be a decision. So the school is now on the hook for a lot of explaining. You got some splaining to do there. Local
Who
school.
does the investigating?
Oh, did it say that? Let me look again, see if it said. Well, apparently the school has to do their own investigation. They have to have
Who
a
at the
policy
school?
for procedures. It's not going to get that detailed. They have a policy for procedures used to report and investigate an alleged violation, and must include a timeline for the investigation, the response, and when they
Well,
think.
who's going to investigate? The janitor, the gym coach? I mean,
Well, a
who's-
little further down, I was just glancing at it quickly, and it just said the school would work in collaboration with the parents
Yeah, that's probably not something that I highlighted, but let's take
To go through. No, you didn't highlight it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
C. Right. Parents, teachers, employees to resolve concerns and complaints.
Okay, so that's how they do the CSI.
Right.
All right.
The parties will reach a resolution, it says.
Yeah. And then if you remember if you guys remember your Dragnet, in a moment, the results of that trial. Within 40 calendar days of receiving an appeal, the state board, okay, so here's your judge, jury, and executioner, I think, the State Board of Education, shall determine whether the allegations of the original complaint are substantiated. That's number one. Number two, if the school, LEA, knowingly violated the section, and they have to be deemed to have knowingly violating it if they received a complaint but failed to initiate an investigation. So they got the complaint, but they didn't follow up. So they knowingly violated it. Or failed to make a timely determination. So they investigated, but they didn't say anything. Or failed to remedy the violation. So they investigated.
What if
they figured out what happened, but they didn't fix it. Go ahead.
What if they decide that the person who filled out the form is a nutcase?
Well, I have a solution for the board. I know how they can keep everybody under control without a problem. You hire a teacher. The teacher has to make a lesson plan. Every lesson plan for next week has to be submitted this week, and they have to have a committee looking over the lesson plans. And if something is not appropriate, they tell the teacher, you change it or you move and get out of the school.
How happy would we be for something like that?
Well, but we did that. We did that. My principals used to say a lot of times they used to have us submit our lesson plans to make sure that we would, we dotted our I's and crossed our T's. We did. And that is a way that you keep control of what's being taught in the school. Lesson plans are submitted and they have to be approved, and then you can teach it. So then if there are any complaints and the teacher is following the lesson plan, the principal is the one that's going to get thrown out. I mean, they have to, if this is what they want to do, this is the way they have to do it. Otherwise it's a kangaroo court. Otherwise it's whoever's opinion it is. You have to have a committee. You have to submit the plans in. It's either approved or not approved.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to leave.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. I'll let you carry on with your life.
Shirley is right about the lesson plans. Every teacher I know had to submit lesson plans in advance, and they had to be approved, and that's the way it works.
The only difference is if you're in a normal place or a place that's trying to form a dictatorship, to think a certain way. I call it a dictatorship, but the state that has one thought in mind, and that's it. It's a cult. A state that's trying to become a cult. A cult is something that that you can only say this and only do that. That's a cult. Yeah. And if you don't follow the cult, you're out of it.
Opinions presented on the podcast are not necessarily those of the York County Democratic Party, but they should be.
Sorry.
All right. Let's see what else is
okay. I've got to wrap it up too.
They are the opinions of an experienced teacher.
as we're losing people fast, but here we are at the penalty phase of our program. And let's see what it says here. Because assuming, that a school screws up, there has to be a penalty. They have to pay. So if the state board determines that the school violated the section has to enter a correction plan. They have to say what they're going to do, specific acts or steps to resolve noncompliance. Or in other words, they have to fix it. Got to fix it. If they don't fix it, what can happen? Well, here under L, If the state board determines that they knowingly violated and failed to adhere to a corrective action plan, the department, oh, this is killer. The department may withhold up to 5% of the money that they would get from the state. 5% of the money they get from the state. I think they get most of their money from the county, I think. I'm sure they get a substantial amount from the state. And they can withhold 5% of it for not complying.
You know,
What?
the base. Go
What
ahead.
if they, but they're all saying that the form is right. What if the school determines that the complaint is bullshit?
Well, I think that you've arrived at an interesting crux of the situation, because it's the Republicans are assuming that no Republicans are ever going to complain about anything that a teacher is saying in their school about a Republican thing. They're only going to complain about the things that those godless communist, pinko leftist teacher Democrats want to try to
Yes,
infuse.
who are probably secretly lizard people.
Yeah, well, that's not even secret. We know we are.
Well, you have to understand, they're not going to hire anybody that doesn't think their way. So if they're going to do a background check,
Somebody's going
they're going to find.
Somebody's going to sneak in. Somebody's going to sneak in.
Okay, so somebody sneaks in,
Yeah.
but you know something? They're going to be out in 5 minutes. It's the rules are the basic thing is
We know teachers are
whatever-
mostly lily-livered liberals. Don't we?
No, they're not.
people are going to do what they have to the teachers are going to do what they have to keep their jobs, to put food on the table for their family. Most of the teachers are women, are single family women, or helping out in a husband and wife situation.
Most families depend on that income.
That's
Okay,
right.
so they're gonna toe the line
so
because they're
gonna
scared.
say, they're going to say, I'm going to go home and teach my children the correct thing. If these people want me to teach their kids the wrong thing, and this is what the rules are of the state, then I'm going to do it. The bottom part is whatever the rules they come up with are the rules of the state, the parents, whether I think it's right or I think it's wrong. If the state, if the state it makes up rules and you take a job, you have to do what the job says. Or there's consequences that you lose your job. And so complaint or not complaint, if you don't follow the rules 100%, the school knows what the rules are, the teacher knows what the rules are, the lesson plans are prepared, then yes, the teacher is let go. The thing is, it should not be allowed to have this goes totally against the Constitution. And therefore, these laws should not be enacted. You can't
Doesn't this go back right back to the Scopes monkey trial?
It may. Yeah, it may. Although
I mean, this is exactly what that was about.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean,
the monkey
I
trial
think this
was.
it was a teaching evolution in the public schools.
Teaching of evolution in the public school.
Oh, okay.
But
And where was it? Arkansas? In Arkansas?
I think it was Tennessee.
And then they had ruled that teaching evolution is godless, and he taught evolution in science class.
Yeah. I don't think that's what this is aimed at. This is aimed at this race theory, the CRT.
But it comes down to the same thing.
Well, it comes down to teaching one.
Not teaching facts.
It comes down to teaching one belief versus another, one that we think aligns with facts and one that they think doesn't align with facts. So, yeah, it's a fight over over what we are going to be stuffing into the mushy brains of our impressionable youth. And
In the South.
And they want
In
they
the
want us
South, not in the North.
they
in
want
the
to
South.
in South Carolina. That's where we are.
Well, I'm saying It's going to
Those
be in the
grades-
South. It's going to be it's going to be in Florida. It's going to be in South Carolina. It's going to
Oh,
be
yeah.
in the southern.
It's going to be in Idaho.
Yeah.
It's going to
It's
be in
not
North
going to be.
Dakota.
It's not going to be in New York.
Well, but
it's not going to be in New Jersey,
Yeah.
and it's not going to be in Connecticut or Pennsylvania.
Right. It's a red state,
gonna
blue
be in-
state, which is a lot of
Right.
South, but not all South.
It is. But you know something? It's there's going to be laws enacted. They're going to.
Well,
the states
yes,
are going to have to come together.
this
at
is one of them.
point.
This is the law. This is the law that they're trying to get enacted. It was passed. Matt was telling me it was passed by the committee. Going to move up to a subcommittee. I guess it's moving up to another committee. Will this actually become law in South Carolina? Who knows? Don't
You
know
know
yet.
something? There's I have faith in people. Yes, it's a red state, but there are a lot of people in the red state who are normal, healthy people who have been educated, and I think they're going to want their kids to be educated. I think it's what you're going to get is people who are afraid or they have so much guilt as to what is being taught. What are you afraid of the truth for? There's nothing to be afraid of the truth. You didn't do it, so you're not the one that somebody's going to say, "Hey, you did this." But this is what was the history of the people, and we've come a long way. Either the state, the parents in the state are going to say, "I want my children to move forward. I want them to learn from the past." And then they're going to become responsible people who can be conservatives in the country eventually.
I think that's
But they've
absolutely
gotta
not
know
what they
what
want. They don't want them to feel responsibility, and they don't want them to learn from the past. We've been
They don't
seeing.
want- they-
Yeah.
No.
No,
I'm saying
most-
there are people in this state these people who are making these laws may not even be what these they did not run on this when they ran for office. Now they're coming out. And
Raye
saying
Felder didn't
what
run
they
on
are.
anything. She didn't say a word.
Right. So therefore, the parents. This is culture shock for this
who is it?
parent.
Who you're talking about? Who?
Raye
I'm
Felder.
talking about there are
Raye
people.
Felder?
Raye Felder is your state representative.
Yes, I know.
In Columbia.
She is like a ghost.
Yeah. Yeah.
But-
She
but
ran
the
on cutting
point
ribbons.
Yeah, but the point is, whatever these people are coming out with, there are people who are waking up, Republican, Democrat, Independent, doesn't matter. They're waking up and then saying, "What is this crazy woman talking about?" They're educated people. They want their kids to be educated. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to. I mean, if it has to be voted on by the state, well, then we'll see where the people are.
Well, this is going to be
But,
voted on by the legislature, and the legislature is solidly Republican. I would be surprised
But
if
all
this doesn't.
Republicans don't think the same way. All Republicans don't think the same way.
That is true.
There are some Republicans that are educated here in this state that don't think like that. They want to teach their kids what happened, what between right and wrong. There are a lot of people that don't.
Well, I mean, I certainly hope that's true, and we will see. We will see. A lot of bills get filed. Most of them don't go anyplace. I have no idea whether this one is going to go anyplace or not.
I don't
We'll
think
see.
I don't think that it would get past the legislature. I think there are too many people who will start picking it apart the way we were doing, and they will start picking at it. Well, how is this going to work?
Yeah.
How is that going to work?
If those people are called Democrats, I've heard it said by party officials that the Democrats in the state legislature could spend all day fishing and it wouldn't make any difference.
No, I don't think it's going to be all just Democrats. I think it's going to be people who are going to look at it practically and say, how could this be implemented? How is this going to work?
Right.
What's going to happen? How is it going to be? Is the ACLU going to come down on our necks and file a lawsuit? No, we're going to have to defend this in court.
Yeah.
This?
You may be right because they had a public hearing on this today down in Columbia, and they announced the public hearing this morning. So if you wanted to participate in the public hearing, you had to be able to get to Columbia within a couple hours to get there for the hearing this afternoon. They hid it. They didn't want public input. So
There's
So
gonna
that's
be-
what I said. There are, if somebody, and all somebody has to do is take a case and the ACLU takes it up and your state gets all these headlines and everyone says, oh, South Carolina's a bad place to do business. No, they're not going to want that.
okay.
Well, you have to have some faith in the country. We're separated by a lot of things. The Democrats, independents, and Republicans. We are separated by a lot of things. But you have to understand that there are educated people in this state that went to school and learned all these things. They know they didn't do anything wrong, that they learned the history. And if they want to make something of their children, they're going to want their children to do the same thing. These people will get voted out of office at the next time. Unfortunately, maybe they'll have some things going on. There'll be a lot of lawsuits. There'll be a lot of problems at individual schools. But then when it comes to vote, they'll get voted out. And they'll look for people who will look to change the legislature, change the laws again. Laws change every 5 minutes. The law doesn't stay forever.
This is a very business positive state. And the governor is a very business positive governor. And anything that is going to detract from the way the state appears to possible investors, to possible businesses moving to the state is not going to get passed. And this is something that, like a lot of other laws in other states, they said, oh, we can't go move to that state. We can't invest in that state. Look what they're doing to the schools. No, I don't think it will get through the state legislature because it will be bad for business.
And I'm sure there are some people in this state, Republicans, who want their kids to get into Harvard, and they're not going to get into Harvard thinking like this.
I appreciate
It's
your...
a different state.
One of the arguments at the Scopes Monkey trial was, one of them said, I want my kid to go to Yale like I did. And if he doesn't know about evolution, he's not going.
All right. I appreciate your optimistic view of which way this is going to go. And it's going to be a while. These things work their way through the legislature slowly, and we may never hear from it again.
Is this the first term of this legislature or the second term of this legislature?
We just elected everybody, so that's the first of 2 years.
First of 2 years. Okay.
Yeah, they can be impeached also. You get enough parents
not going to
with
happen,
money
Shirley.
here. Well, you can. But the point is that they'll do so much damage, the parents will not vote them in again. And as you say, there's a lot of lawsuits that's going to show up. There are going to be lawsuits that'll show up. I mean, this is totally against the Constitution, some of the things that you've said. And the South is so into the Constitution. So
no, they're only to the Constitution. They are only in favor of the Constitution when they can read it their way.
Yeah, when it suits their purposes.
Yeah, I understand.
The Constitution otherwise. They are not in favor of the Constitution. Where did you say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? No, they're not interested in that. They're not interested in liberty. They're not interested in that. We the people? No, it's me, the people.
Okay.
There are a lot of people. There are a lot of people that think that way, but there are many people. I have to say, even if it's Democrats, independents, and some Republicans, it's still going to outnumber. And it's still going to, when it comes down to their kids, it's another story. They're going to look and see. If I don't teach my kids certain things and they go out into the world and somebody says to them something about evolution and the kids look at them like they have two heads, the boss is going to say, where does this guy come from? Mars? They want their kids to be educated. That you can keep them down for a while, But children meet other children who learn the real thing, even if it's at home. And they're going to start, and the kids start to, ask questions. Not everybody is a sheep, and all the children in the world, and a lot of them are sheep. They'll follow their parents, but a lot of them are going to ask a lot of questions, and they're providing failure for their children if they don't teach what is. That's a fact of life.
Every time as I can tell you as a librarian, every time they come out with a list of banned books, teenagers come running in to borrow the banned books to the public library. Of course, because grown-ups told them not to do it. Grown-ups told them not to. Adults told them not to do it. So they're going to do it.
And they're going to do it. That's what children do. Say you can't do this, and I'm going to do it.
Okay,
and then
guys,
they're gonna learn.
let's. We're doing a podcast. Let's wrap this show up. We were looking at the Transparency and Integrity in Education Act. It was introduced by South Carolina's representative for the 26th district over here in the Fort Mill area. Once again, we're the Fort Mill Mafia. Raye Felder. She had about 10 or other sponsors, I believe, for that. And it was just introduced, and it will sit there for the legislature to ponder and perhaps pass into law. We will see. Follow this up. I just thought Matt noticed this, and Matt Villardebo, he noticed this earlier today. He put out a bulletin on the Facebook group and said, if anybody can be in Columbia to testify or to speak.
Unfortunately, I'll be in Columbia tomorrow, but
your timing is terrible for this.
But
what are you going there for?
I'll be on a day trip to the State Museum, and I'll be in Columbia on Saturday for the League of Women Voters.
Oh, you're getting involved.
Talking about banned books.
Yeah. You're getting like seriously involved in stuff. You got to come back and tell us what you discovered.
Yes, I will. Well, not much at the State Museum, I don't think. But
when you come back, you need to learn how to reach up on top of your computer and tilt that thing down so we can see your face.
It's not movable.
I don't know how it can't be movable.
Let me ask you.
It only goes up or down, and this is as up as it goes.
That's as down as it'll go.
Joyce, and sit on a couple of pillows.
Yeah.
Sit on a couple of pillows.
Try that.
Well, I'm enjoying.
Try it again.
I'm enjoying your impression of Kilroy. You know what Kilroy is, right?
Yeah, Kilroy was here.
Yeah, that's it.
Joyce, what you have to do when you go to the State Museum tomorrow is take some pictures of what the State Museum is saying about the state, what the state did before. Because if the state is saying, telling a story about slavery and other things that happened in the state, the truth, then how can the state legislature, this legislature come along and say everything in the State Museum is a lie?
Yeah. Well, we did take down
that's basically what they're saying.
Yeah, we did take down the Confederate flag, and I believe some monuments have been taken down.
And
so there's some hope. There's some hope.
You can't say you're going to a state museum and they're teaching A and the schools are going to teach B. Okay. It doesn't work.
Tell you what, what I'll do with this podcast, let you guys keep talking and we'll just sort of fade it out. This has been the York County Democratic Party, YCDP TV podcast, brought to you tonight by my friends here in Carolina Orchards in the, what do we call ourselves?
I'm sorry I didn't get to it sooner.
You got here just in time. Our community is called the Americans for Democracy and Equality. And we are the progressive group up here. There are 76 of us official members. 3 or 4 or 5 of them show up on our Zoom meetings. And we are outnumbered here in Carolina Orchards, just like every progressive group is pretty much everywhere in South Carolina, except for a couple of blue spots, but not here. And thank you guys for joining us on the podcast. And carry on, just keep on talking, and I'll just sort of fade it out to black.
Okay. Charlene,
let me know when it's black.
Yeah, you know how schools work. So
yes, I do.
Wave goodbye to the audience.
And I didn't want to offend anybody.